Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, probably mostly gentlemen, to Uffsides, the NFL show on the internet. It's the only place you can consume the NFL on the internet. Joining me today, to my left, is Spencer Hall, the editorial director of SBNation.com, founding editor of EDSBS.com, a college football fan through and through. Welcome, sir.
Strange territory, but I'm thrilled to be here.
What brings you to New York?
Among other things, I'm here to do Uffsides with Matt Ufford.
That's the main reason, of course.
That is the main reason. I'm also here to talk to Dan Rubenstein, a friend of yours, because he
Yes.
just got back from New Orleans.
Indeed.
And it was the first time, I believe, he'd been there.
He and Celebrity Hot Tub both, New Orleans virgins until this weekend.
Yes, and boy, that maidenhead is gone. That has disappeared. So
NOLA leaves no maidenhead intact.
no, and we're here to talk about football. So among other things, top secret things.
Top secret. Stay tuned. Should we follow you on Twitter to get these top secret things eventually
Absolutely.
revealed to us?
I break all kinds of news, including the news that our good friend Holly Anderson is going to work for Grantland.com. Go ahead and check it. It's 10 minutes before
Really?
Bill Simmons' tweet. Yes.
All right. Well, also SBNation.com's Andrew Sharp is also leaving for Grantland.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. A fine destination going from one to the other. Andrew Sharp, a very talented young man who we will no longer speak to, ever.
As we say in the naval services, fair winds and following seas, Andrew Sharp, don't let the door hit you on the ass.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the NFL. I'm always perplexed a couple times every fall when we NFL fans and college fans eventually butt heads over which product is superior. And I don't want to go through the usual rigmarole of the same stupid arguments.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about that rift and why we feel the need to go through these motions a couple times every fall.
People like hierarchy, and they like making lists. So they enjoy, for their own personal reasons, too. Because remember, this is a brand. And,
Yes.
and any brand, of course, buffets your own ego. So how dare you assail my brand, right, or say anything good about yours without me having to counter?
Yes.
I think that's one reason. And two, it's a very different experience because I think that there are a few NFL fan bases that are actually fans of the team because they're from this place.
Yes.
I think there's a few, and I will cite Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is basically sort of a misplaced college football town.
It is, but you also have that diaspora of the diaspora.
Go either way. I majored in English in an SEC school, so I don't know.
That diaspora, I'm going to say it that way, of fans in the 1970s. Pittsburgh, of course, went into the proverbial toilet as a city and sent fans far and wide at the same time that the team had an unprecedented run of success.
Right.
There are now Steelers fans like cockroaches throughout the country.
That would be one word. I would say diehard, lovable insects with a drinking problem. That's another way to refer. Pittsburgh fans, by the way, I'm not saying anything unusual. Pittsburgh fans will own that. They're the ones who Blitzburg. They're a drinking town with a football problem.
Of course.
But I think they're one team that compares to that. I think another team that sort of has that kind of fan base is Dallas. For better or worse, there's always bandwagoners, but I think most people who root for the Cowboys,
The Redskins. Our Redskins fans are ordinarily very intelligent people who get really stupid when it comes to football.
They do. And here's one of the reasons why college and football and NFL are similar. Both have teams that can be possessed, hamstrung, and completely decimated by inept management that's out of fans' hands.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that we can bond on. If you said, okay, well, you have an incompetent AD or an incompetent coach, Redskins fans are listening, and
Yes.
and they've been listening. You're gonna win the Super Bowl this year, though. It'll be different. It's different than every other year, Redskins fans.
Off-season champs.
Dan Snyder just figured this out again, for the 10th year in a row. But I think the principal difference is this, that the NFL is marketed as a brand that people can pick up. I think college football, it's more diffuse. There's 125 teams. And that's mainly locally sourced. I think there are people who do pick it up, and they are fans on the side, but I think regionality matters a bit more in college football.
I do think that you've brought it up in your writing, talking about it's kind of the last bastion of tribalism in America. And I do see where each individual stadium is its own mecca for that group of fans. And like going to the games in person is actually part of the experience, whereas the NFL fan experience is sitting at home or at a bar watching 7 televisions of all the games at once and drinking your face off while you check your fantasy team.
So let's talk about where the NFL is superior. Because
Okay.
you have to start with concessions. So we'll start with concessions.
All right.
The NFL is superior in terms of overall skill level. That's not even close. You have people playing college football who will be going pro in something else, and as the NCAA likes to say.
Of course.
So that's obvious.
Yes.
And if you are a person who insists on there being this like better, this best,
Yes.
and you have to watch the best, and you have this luxury.
This product is superior than another product.
In one sense, yes.
Yes.
In one sense, in the terms of play, your coverages are tighter. Your tackling's better. You don't see a lot of broken tackles. You'll see guys in college who look like monsters because the dude tackling them was a 4-star coming out of high school who peaked when they were 18. We'll come back to this theme, but there's a lot of guys in college who are the dude and or lady who hit puberty in 6th grade, and they were as good as they are ever going to be when they were 18.
The window for error is much smaller in the NFL, and yet a lot of times that people still get through that window.
Yeah, and it's astonishing that you have to say that as a college fan. You have to say it is astonishing to watch some of the things that people in the NFL do. At the same time, I think another thing that's superior in the NFL is, to go with quality control is their honesty, because they actually pay their players up front.
Yes.
So, and that's not something that can happen at every college school, but it's something that should.
The NCAA is it kind of its own is the anchor that's dragging that product down.
Mm-hmm. No, the university presidents are the anchor, because the NCAA is just this front.
Yeah,
that's just legitimizing fraud.
It's
That's
the fence.
It's the fence, right? It's just the guy it's their stooge. It's the corrupt mayor, right? Who's being paid off by university presidents to sanction and give some sense of legitimacy to not paying their labor. And the truth is that there's probably a very small number of schools that can afford to pay football players, and they're certainly not going to be able to pay anybody but football and basketball.
Yeah, because there's just not enough revenue in the rest of athletics on a college campus.
Right, and that's unless women's lacrosse really takes off here in the next 20 years, and I hope it
Northwestern,
does.
go Cats!
I hope it does, for the Big Ten's sake. They're going to be like all over that. But if it doesn't, and it probably won't, then you're going to be left with football and basketball as revenue sports, and there's going to be a break, and they're already openly talking about it.
All right, let's move on to college football. What makes the college football the superior product to NFL, according to college fans?
Stadium experience. Stadium
Yes.
experience is far better.
I would happily concede that.
Yeah, stadium experience is better. The overall experience surrounding the game is better. I enjoy watching the games more, and here's why. And the easiest way for me to explain it is this. I love a band that misses notes. I like a little bit of error. I like the sort of rough-hewn quality of a lot of the play. It's one of the reasons that I haven't enjoyed watching Alabama football a whole lot.
Yeah.
Is because not just because they're annoyingly good. I like watching people be really good and do things well. But at the same time, it's vapor lock. They don't take any chances. There's very few trick plays. Their schemes aren't that interesting. It's
a German engineered football machine.
Right. And, I like, some people enjoy getting in a BMW because it's a really nice driving machine. Well, I like getting in a Lamborghini because you get the feeling that it's going to kill you. And they made mistakes making it. They did. You're probably going to take it off the road. If you watch a college football game, it really might go to 70-63, right?
And with that imperfection in the college game, it gives you a greater opportunity for teams to innovate. Which we see college football is kind of the breeding ground for innovation.
There's no incentive to innovate at the NFL level because everyone's making money.
Yes. And
everyone would like to keep their jobs. And that's a perfectly respectable thing. You can't make fun of that, okay? I'm going to, and it's unfair, but that's my job. At the same time, the NFL just lifts everything that college does because at times you have to work with your talent. And
Yes.
your talent can't do certain things. At times, they are going to be completely inept in one department, but really gifted in another. The best example of this is Art Briles at Baylor, okay? Art Briles in high school ran the wishbone, went to the spread first, okay, in Texas. He was one of the first guys to do it because, those were the players he was getting. And then he went to Houston, and then he went to Baylor, and then he takes RG3 and turns him into the new prototype for what an NFL QB could be.
The new football god.
The new football gods. And if you watch them, it's fun to watch NFL guys because you can see who's competent and who's not. Bill Belichick has consistently taken and lifted things from college playbooks and done it well. And then you see, the Jets and Tony Sparano do it so ineptly and do such a bad job. Even the Broncos with Tebow, they didn't even run that offense all that well.
No.
And then they put Tim Tebow in it. And, God bless Tim Tebow, he can do certain things, but, quick decision making, it's always been trumped by, I'm going to run that guy over.
which is fun to watch in its own right. There was that mess of a Broncos team that went 8-8 and beat the Steelers in the playoffs was entertaining to watch, and it was 3/4 of lame duck throws and an occasional run by Tebow, and then the teams would sell all out against Tebow running the ball, and then he'd hit a deep pass. He throws a good deep ball.
He throws a great deep ball. Everything else is
horrible.
Pun intended. A prayer. It's a prayer.
But I do want to talk about this the habit, how college fans such as yourself can consume the NFL or choose to consume the NFL. You pull for the Falcons? You're an Atlanta guy, or is it just you cheer for the players that you loved in college?
You end up watching a fair amount of the NFL because it's on, and if you're a sports fan, that's real. This is why ESPN wins a lot, because it's on, and you'll turn the TV on and you'll kill some time watching it. The thing that I will do in terms of who to root for is I'll root for an interesting play. I'll root for players and teams that are aggressive. So it was a lot of fun to watch the Saints under Sean Payton.
Yeah, that team's a blast, and Drew Brees still kind of gets it done.
And they were aggressive on both sides of the ball too. This isn't the standard they don't score points. It's because we play defense in the pros. They played really aggressive defense. It's Greg Williams. He would actively encourage people to injure others on the field. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they did that.
Word got around.
Word did get around, and but that's you choose that. Atlanta, I root for sometimes, but it's a painfully boring brand of ball until Dirk Cutter came around last year. So hopefully they'll be more interesting. And I will root for attitude. I will root for attitude and players and innovation. So that's why I like the San Francisco 49ers, because they actually do new things, and they took Colin Kaepernick and they did not put him in the tiny little pro box. They actually let him do what he does so well, which is run the ball 10 times a game on very carefully chosen runs.
The way that he runs the ball, it looks like he's jogging but taking long strides and somehow moving faster than everybody.
Yeah, he was the atomic ostrich in college, and he really has continued to do that because his strides are about 20 feet long. He
and Russell Wilson both are making the NFC West exciting, probably the best division in football right now, in the NFL.
And by the way, 2 college coaches. You're looking at Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, but we in those 2 quarterbacks, we've got players that played brilliantly in college, but came in as kind of second-tier NFL prospects because there was questions about the system in Kaepernick's case, or with Russell Wilson, his height. As a college fan, I hear things from Wisconsin fans, Wilson's going to be amazing. Forget his height. Wilson's going to be amazing. And I'm like, well, we'll see. And can you project having seen guys who just play and without getting knocked down for their height or their arms being too short or their 40s not fast enough? What players have you seen in college that you just knew were going to be amazing regardless of how they were measured or graded by scouts?
Oh, Kaepernick was one. Kaepernick was just, once you heard his 40 time, obviously he's playing in a pistol offense, which is now the basis for, a lot of the run game, for San Francisco, and it's also, going to spread. It's still spreading in college, by the way. Mike Leach is working on building in the pistol at Washington State.
I look forward to that.
With the air raid. They did it a little bit last year, but it should actually be further along now. Mastro went out there in the offseason. But I think that when you look at, like a Kaepernick, right? He's obviously talented, and he's tall enough, and he's fast enough. The real question is, would his decision-making keep up with that? And running, by the way, really improves your decision-making because it makes it simpler. It takes a defender out of the box a lot of the time. So you're facing single coverage. It makes them look a lot smarter than they might actually be, right? Drew Brees was another guy. I think Jarvis Jones at Georgia, who's now been drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's just a guy that once he sort of gets his coverage instincts down a little bit and he starts, just doing something, he's a wrecking ball. So they have to sort of train the wrecking ball how to move or put him in a position to succeed. Most of it comes down to, do they have a coach who's going to put them in a position to succeed? And the pros, it's so systematic. Sometimes that doesn't happen. You can see the smarter guys in the pros who do that. The list is the same guys you will always hear. You will always hear Harbaugh, you'll always hear Belichick. Those are the 2 guys who are best at adapting thus far, and Pete Carroll thus far. I'm curious about that because I was surprised by Deion Jordan was supposed to be perfect for a 3-4, and he got picked up by the 4-3 Dolphins. And I'm curious how you think that's going to work.
I don't know because I don't have a huge amount of faith in the Dolphins coaching right now. I think that they took some strides forward that I didn't expect them to take last year. But I am yet to be convinced that that organization knows what to do with Deion Jordan.
Yeah, and what would your gut say if he were taken by Pete Carroll?
It's just one of those things where the track record speaks for itself. People question Bruce Irvin going in the first round last year. He turned out to be okay.
Right, and that's because Pete Carroll knew how to use him, and he tweaked the system and put him in spots to succeed. I don't know if the Dolphins can do that, and they don't have that much of a track record yet. It's a short track record. I mean, it's not like he's been around forever.
Is it Joe Philbin? I always
yeah, I believe it is Joe Philbin. That's another. By the way, that's another thing is that most college fans, they'll always know who's coaching whatever team.
I've noticed that I consume college football mostly through the Twitter feed of yourself and Celebrity Hot Tub. So it's like reading jokes that I have very little context for. And I've kind of learned who coaches are by osmosis.
Right. And you ask a college fan, and they'll probably know who the coach is, especially in conference. I don't know if a pro fan knows that in their division sometimes.
Yeah, especially when it comes to coordinators. I will definitely. It's more about recognizing players and that it should be coaches. And perhaps that's backwards.
Yeah, it might be, but you know what? In college, there's a reason for that. There's always usually some very boring reason for this. It's not because they're smarter, although college fans are smarter, unless we're talking about SEC fans, and we can have that discussion if you want. But on the whole, they'll know that guy because the coach is, I think, a bit more important because the coach has this system and he's trying to get people to function very quickly with great success in a very short span of time. That's another thing. The difference is the amount of time you have to work on the game, the game craft. You don't have a lot of practice time in college. You don't have a whole lot of complexity, and that matters because the coach has to be able to teach a lot of very simple concepts very quickly.
Yeah, for as much as we make jokes about the student-athlete notion, they do actually sometimes go to classes or at least have to meet with their tutor who does all their homework for them.
There are blocks of time that they are obligated to pretend they're students sometimes.
Yes. Let's talk about the draft that just occurred. What players, we talked about Jarvis Jones. He will likely be an NFL success.
I hope so. I think Pittsburgh only drafts players by crash test. I don't think they've really ever paid attention to a 40. I don't think they've ever paid attention to an injury report. I think they just pay attention to how much force they can withstand in a crash.
Who can do the most damage on the field?
I like Jones a lot, but I don't think he's in a position to do a tremendous amount of damage. I think the 49ers drafting Matt Elam. I'm a Florida fan.
Ravens.
The Ravens. I'm sorry. Ravens drafting Matt Elam. That's a perfect match because that is a team that works on physical violence first.
Yes.
And on coverage smarts second. He has both of them, and he's there to be groomed to replace Ed Reed.
And he will, I think. I think he has all the makings of. It happens. The Ravens do this every year. They're always at the end of the first round, and they always get this guy. You're like, oh, he's gonna be great. Damn it!
They get this guy who's just sitting there and who is an obvious match for what they do. And Matt Elam is extraordinarily violent, very hardworking, great coverage skills, knack for the ball, and he's going to harm people. And that's exactly what they want him to do.
You mentioned before we went live was Ezekiel Anza. And we had Jerry Mallory from our Lions blog. He was very disappointed with that pick.
Yeah, he's wrong. With all due respect to him, Ezekiel Anza is kind of a project. But if you look at him, he's extremely raw. He doesn't have a whole lot of technique. And when he develops it, he'll be terrifying. And he's surrounded by, I think a good core of professional peers who are certainly going to be the people you'd want to study under in terms of learning your technique. So I think he's in a good spot. It's not a great spot. It's not like a guaranteed he's got mentors.
No one's ever called Detroit a great spot.
No. So I damn with faint praise and say he's in a very good spot to do that. Whether he does that with the Lions, I'm curious as to whether they'll give up on him, if he doesn't quite come along fast enough. I think the high draft pick probably buys some patience. But at the same time, he's so gifted. And Kyle Van Noy, go look at Kyle Van Noy. He's the linebacker who played behind Anza a lot. Kyle Van Noy's tackle numbers were bonkers. And a lot of that comes from lines flipping out, changing protections, and channeling everything toward Van Noy because Anza was taking up so much protection. His game tape is just insane.
All right, let's move on to the Stankonia Dome. That's what Jason Kirk of SB Nation called it. The proposed stadium/dome in Atlanta. We've got a couple stills of it. It is.
Oh,
We've got the.
that's tasteful.
The impact seating. It's a little bit ridiculous with the. Do we really need our chairs to rumble when a big hit happens?
You need bass, son.
I always when we played it was Madden with the old Sega controllers. The first Rumble controllers that annoyed the crap out of me, and I turned that off immediately.
Well, nobody invited you to the Temple of Boom, son.
No, indeed not.
You can come to the A anytime you like. You don't have to step in the stadium. But if they do have those, that's a very tasteful thing to have with CTE lawsuits lurking out there. But it is. You should know this about the stadium, by the way. Allegedly $200 million in public financing, which is coming from existing sources. That's
hotel taxes, I believe, was
hotel taxes, which by charter, it's easy to say, it's another misuse of public money. Oh, well, on what curve of misuse do you want to get on? Because this is the state of Georgia. It's not a particularly well-run state. Atlanta's probably the best-run place in it, and that's
terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Having seen the highway system that runs around it.
Yeah, and what you have to know is this: if it's $200 million out of $1 billion, if that number is real, that's money that by law, by rule, has to go towards promoting the city anyway. So it's not, you could say, okay, that $200 million should be better spent on children. Yes, legally, right now, as it stands, it cannot.
We got some more pictures of proposed. This is the it shows the roof opens and closes. Definitely not like a butthole.
No, not like the robot butthole. It's kind of portally, isn't it? You need the GLaDOS voice to be our PA announcer on there. Hey, video game nerds.
Yeah, I don't play it, but I understand. I know that Portal's a game where you have a gun that allows you to create portals.
Atlanta Falcons still alive and doing science. That. By the way, the other thing about the stadium that's very amusing is that the city's already managed to screw up the concessions contracts once. So
fantastic. How they do this? How hard is it to put?
That's about as much detail as I can go into. But
how hard is it to put Chick-fil-A every 50 feet?
It is much harder than it really should be.
What else? We got some more pictures too. The 100-yard bar. This is just a fantastic idea at every level.
I really like the 100-yard bar because if you don't know, Atlanta was founded by the Free and Rowdy Party. Our first two mayors were from the Free and Rowdy Party. Bootleggers.
This is for real.
No, this is for real. Go look it up on Wikipedia. The Free and Rowdy Party was the dominant party in the early stage of Atlanta development, and they were literally a group of brothel owners and barkeeps. That's it. And so the 100-yard bar, it's practically an homage to our city's traditions.
My opinion of Atlanta just shot up. I'm thrilled to know about the Free and Rowdy Party.
You should know they were one of those guys, our only mayor to get stabbed.
Yet. We got one more picture from the Oculus, the 360-degree video board.
I like that they have the little replace with Animation World Cup.
Yeah,
right.
That was the final.
Because we're gonna make a bid on that. That's actually MLS is something that's probably in play there because Blank has been big on trying to get an MLS team.
Well, Atlanta's got a very high number of immigrants, actually. Correct.
Yeah, and it's a fairly good soccer town. They've had like a good minor league. The Silverbacks have been there, and they've stayed alive. And if a soccer team stays alive for longer than 5 years, you can consider that a success. So. Yeah. MLS should be there, if only because I really want to buy season tickets for something for like $100.
Yeah, I got a quarter share of Nets tickets, and I can't have children now.
Yeah, that's too bad. But you know what? Joe Johnson will be worth it. That's one thing we know in Atlanta, that Joe Johnson is always worth the money you pay him.
Oh God. We're getting off topic here. I do, man, Joe Johnson.
It burns, doesn't it?
Just totally derailed this entire show.
20 points a game, all at the time. You don't need it.
No. Yeah, it's and 2 of 13 or whatever in Game 7. Football is a sport that I'm looking forward to.
Focus on football.
Yeah. So when is this Atlanta stadium going to happen anyway?
I believe the date on that would be is it 2017?
2017.
I think that's the launch on it, and they've got to demolish a perfectly good stadium, the Georgia Dome.
It's but that's at least 20 years old.
Yeah, I don't come from a city where we keep anything, so they like to demolish things. It's like that line in L.A. Story, the old Steve Martin movie, where he's like, this dates back all the way back to 1960. Like that's if something is from 1960, it is extremely old in Atlanta terms.
I feel like if you owned a concrete business in Atlanta, you would be wealthy.
It's the construction business is, of course, a self-perpetuating thing. So I'm sure like the construction lobby somewhere behind this, like, yeah, just knock the hell out of that 20-year-old building. We need to build a new one.
Yeah. It's the exact same building across the street.
Yeah. And also this goes into our bigger, shinier thing. This is another sort of NFL thing that like if you're not in a city like New York and you're not in Chicago or I was about to say L.A., but
that's not an NFL town.
Not an NFL town. Suck it, L.A.
I hate
But yeah, if you're in a town, I mean, this is another attraction, right? And this is another thing that when they build it, they're listing all of the other things that they're going to pull.
Yeah.
And that goes from everything from the Monster Truck Show, which is listed, by the way.
Really?
It's listed as one of the events. If you go to the Georgia World Congress Center, gwcc.org, and look up all the plans, there's this long list of events that are included as.
Please tell me WrestleMania's on that.
WrestleMania is on that long term. I mean, we're not going to get it immediately, but it's on there as well. So WrestleMania's in there. Monster Trucks are in there. Pretty much all of the great tentpole events of Southern culture are all built into that.
We
including the SEC championship game.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's never going anywhere.
That's actually a strong incentive because New Orleans be creeping.
It is, and well, I mean, you and I both love New Orleans and would live there if it weren't for the fact that the city would kill us inside of a month, I'd say.
I got about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I come home, I feel like my heart is beating more slowly and not in the good, healthy way.
Yeah, no, it's because something's blocking your arteries, not because you're relaxed. But at the same time, like it's a regional game, and if Miami does something, we have to do something, and if Atlanta does something, then New Orleans feels the pressure to do it. Then New Orleans doesn't do anything because they're a little disorganized, and we take the game again.
Yeah, you talk about Atlanta being corrupt. New Orleans has got a couple miles on you.
We're always talking about curves, right? It's where you are on that curve. And Atlanta may be disorganized, but on our curve, right up there.
It's time for our final segment of the day. That is Fumbler. I'm a fan of Photoshop. You, sir, are the subject of today's Fumbler.
Delightful.
We've got. Let's go ahead and cut to the first one here. That's you sporting jorts because you're a Florida fan, of course.
I've heard that before.
We're just relaxing at home. Is that cigarette and katana both in hand?
I've given up one.
Yeah,
the cigarettes.
still have the sword.
Still addicted to that beautiful katana.
And we'll try to ignore the Confederate flag in the background. There.
Oh, it's my cousin's house. So.
Okay, yeah. So it's nothing that you personally.
I'm not wearing a shirt. I always wear a shirt at home because no shirt, no shoes, no
you're
service at my house.
You're looking slim there. I didn't realize.
I did. That was a few months ago. It's been a rough couple of months.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What's we got one more Photoshop too. This is you with your block of cheese.
That's actually taken from when I did a NASCAR story.
I did. I read that last night.
Yeah, and that is by the way, I would rather get back into that car without a seatbelt than eat that. Because actually, I'm pretty confident I'm not going to put it into the wall. It's really hard to put a NASCAR machine into the wall.
Really? See, I think that I could do it.
Not at Talladega.
Really?
So just a chute. It's a chute.
Because of the banked...
Yeah, it's 30 degrees, and the car is designed to just suck right to the track.
Wow.
Yeah, so they'll let you... Our safety, by the way, this is if you pay to do this, if you go to a NASCAR track, our safety training was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that seems inadequate.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, you're in this enormous box that's just made of, like, strong metal that will allegedly survive an impact with concrete.
Will you ever sit down on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and just watch NASCAR?
Mm-hmm. My son loves it.
Who's your driver?
I am in a committed relationship with the struggling Tony Stewart.
He's pretty fun.
Yeah, he's grumpy. He's kind of fat. I like that he's not an athlete.
Unshaven.
He's unshaven. Prone to throwing things. If you remember last season, he threw a helmet.
Oh, yes, that was he's just very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean he dove into the stands once. Climbed the cage and dove into the stands, which. Quite the feat of athleticism if you've seen Tony Stewart. He really wanted that. He wanted that.
He had to smoke like 5 cigarettes after doing that.
He had to smoke one at the top, I think, just before he climbed down. But yeah, so I'm a Tony Stewart fan in general. That's who I'll ride with. My 3-year-old loves NASCAR.
Yeah,
if you have a 3-year-old and you can get him to sit still for something, you do, even if it's television.
Yeah, well, something has to raise them.
Darryl Waltrip is a fine godfather to my child.
There you go.
Yeah, and if I can get him, to properly get that twang and boogity down by the time he's 4, I'll consider parenting a success.
I do think it's important for Southerners, even when they're going through the motions of getting a fine education, that they hold on to the charms of the South.
Hey, listen, it's NASCAR's universal. Just remember, John Lasseter, head of Pixar, big NASCAR fan. That's how cars got made.
All right, well, hey.
Yeah, he's got a suite out at Sonoma, which, by the way, in case you think NASCAR is totally redneck, you could go to wine country and watch NASCAR if you really had the coin to do it. And that's probably the best way to do it if you can't go to Talladega.
Also, there are races in New Hampshire, which is a southern state that found its way in the north.
It is. It's a lost fragment of it, if you will. I would also highly recommend Bristol at night if you can do it. But the problem is that you get stuck in Bristol, Tennessee.
Probably not going to make it anytime soon.
No. Just make sure you have a way out.
All right.
That's it. Make sure you have a way out.
Is that a euphemism for a gun?
No. You can't bring. What, you think you're going to outgun a NASCAR crowd?
No, sir.
Oh, I'll shoot my way out. Oh, you try that. I would recommend money, patience, and alcohol because they'll run out of alcohol eventually. They're never going to run out of bullets in Bristol, Tennessee.
No. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another fun episode of Uffsides. Our guest, I thank him, Spencer Hall. You probably already follow him on Twitter at EDSBS, EDSBS.
Yeah, that's one way of reading it, yes.
And for those of you who have enjoyed this show, please do subscribe to us on iTunes, follow YouTube, follow myself on Twitter, at Matt Ufford. This has been fun. We'll see you next week.
Later.